We came up with our co-created democracy definition, first of all by looking through the Canadian Constitution and taking it apart and putting it into our own words, and also looking up the dictionary definition of democracy. And we used our definition to examine the Iroquois Constitution and the Athenian Constitution, and we divide ourselves up into two groups, and we used our definition to create a debate about whether one constitution was or was not a democracy. It gave them a chance also to see how that constitution, the Athenian and the Iroquois Constitution, actually influenced the constitutions that we have now in Canada and the US. Yesterday when we were working on our democracy and determining whether or not the British North America Act was a democracy or the Athenian democracy was in fact a democracy. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that we determined were made a democracy. So on your papers you're going to create this, as I said before, a T-chart with a yes and no, and come up with from our primary resource that supports either yes it is or no it is not, or maybe some aspects are and some aspects are not, given what we've read so far. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Everybody's good? All right, so use the markers that I gave you and get started. Okay, let's be done. You guys have
We need to figure out some of the points in the Iroquois Constitution, and we need to sort them if the points are a democracy or not.
Basically, we're trying to figure out if the Iroquois Constitution is actually a democracy or not. And we're finding more no's than yeses. The stages of government have more power than the people who actually live there, and the firekeepers always get to decide on topics, and the supreme leaders. And people don't get to vote.
I think having the children and I go through the rights and freedoms allowed them to see the differences that they may have in their beliefs and what the beliefs are for Canada. And it also allowed them to really look at some of the rights and freedoms that perhaps they and some of us take for granted that they may or may not have, coming from diverse backgrounds and different cultures and different countries, moving to Canada and living here as opposed to where they had come from.
They really had a chance to define what rights and freedoms meant for them personally, for their families, for their home, but also in terms of being a Canadian.
We haven't had for the whole time that we've had a constitution. There's been ones that were added. So for example, the right to vote for women was more recently added than saying the right to vote for men had been. Originally it was a men's right only, and only wealthy men were allowed to vote. And now we discovered that other cultures also were excluded from the right to vote, not just women. And that was very interesting for the students, and they found that fascinating.
Federate lords are kind of like the representatives from each province.
Yeah.
Everyone has the right to stand up and make a difference. I think it means that, like, in the British North American Act, women and black people weren't allowed to vote for a matter of time.
Okay.
So,
Could relate to that. Any other ideas?
In the new constitution, enjoying rights and freedom, it says we have the right to be safe and protected.
I think looking at the Canadian Constitution for the students gave them a chance to look at a primary resource that would give them a window into how our Constitution is structured, and would give them some meaning and purpose to studying some more about the government. It also provided them with the opportunity to ask rich inquiry questions about, where did our Constitution come from, what was it based on, and why we have it, and questions like that.
Democracy or no?
no.
Why?
Well,
It does have a pledge, and we think they choose who their lords are, but we're not sure about that. And most of the things in the Constitution don't have much to do with the Confederacy.
Yeah.